أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل فرجهم ولعنة الله على أعدائهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين آمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In this episode we will deal with the claim made by the Fringe group Al-Islaah, who stated that the Twelvers were a French minority after the death of Imam al-Askari alayhi salam.
This is also why after Imam al-Askari alayhi salam, the books of the sects, for example, by al-Nawbakhti, by Sa'd ibn Abdallah al-Ash'ari, they all mention that the mainstream Shia, who are the followers of Imam al-Askari alayhi salam, they split into 14, 15, some even take it up to 20 sects. Out of these, only one fringe minority were Twelvers, who believed that there was a hidden Imam, or who had been born.
And then that became the majority which we are today.
Yeah, but the majority of that time did not believe that there was a 12th Imam.
So the majority of that time rejected the concept of a son in ghaiba.
Yeah, they rejected the birth as well. They didn't believe because they had never seen anything of that sort. So they didn't have this concept that there's going to be a 12th Imam. They thought, there were groups among them who said Imam al-Askari alayhi salam is the last Imam. We can't accept 𝗧𝗎𝗪, his brother, because he doesn't seem to be a very righteous person. So Imam al-Askari is the end of it.
As you just heard, he claimed that the Twelvers were a French minority after the death of Imam al-Askari alayhi salam, and that the majority of Shia at that time did not believe that there was a 12th Imam, and that the majority rejected a son in ghaiba for Imam al-Askari alayhi salam and his birth, and that they didn't have this concept that there will be a 12th Imam. And his proof for this claim is that there were groups among them who believed Imam al-Askari alayhi salam is the last Imam. First of all, even if we accept for the sake of argument that the Twelver Aqidah was a minority Aqidah after Imam al-Askari alayhi salam, it does not falsify the Aqidah itself. And the best proof for it is the Book of Allah, Quran, where Allah Azza wa Jal mentions that Bani Israel started to worship a calf as their god when Musa alayhi salam went for 30 days and added 10 more. He basically delayed just 10 days than the original plan, and his people deviated and rejected his successor Harun alayhi salam. So the minority Aqidah represented by Prophet Harun alayhi salam and his few followers was rejected by the majority of Bani Israel. Likewise, even if just a small minority believed in a son in ghaiba for Imam al-Askari alayhi salam, it does not mean that they were upon falsehood, just as Harun alayhi salam and his few followers were not upon falsehood. Secondly, he made these claims based on his assumption that since there were too many sects, then the Twelvers were a minority. He emphasized particularly on some scholars mentioning up to 26. But due to his dishonest nature again, he does not mention what else that same historian has said in that same passage, that he said there were up to 26 after Imam al-Askari alayhi salam. The scholar who has mentioned 26 is the famous historian al-Mas'udi, and he is not a Shia scholar as some might have suggested. Al-Mas'udi says in his famous book Muruj al-Dhahab, volume 4, page 160, الإمام الثاني عشر وفي سنة 60 و200 قبض أبو محمد الحسن بن علي بن محمد بن علي بن موسى بن جعفر بن محمد بن علي بن الحسين بن علي بن أبي طالب عليهم السلام في خلافة المعتمد. In the year 260 and during the caliphate of al-Mu'tamid, Abu Muhammad al-Hasan ibn Ali Imam al-Askari alayhi salam passed away, وهو ابن 29 سنة، وهو أبو المهدي المنتظر والإمام الثاني عشر عند القطعية من الإمامية، وهم جمهور الشيعة. He was 29 years old. He is the father of the awaited Mahdi and the 12th Imam among the Qat'iyya of the Imamiyya, who are the majority of the Shia. وقد تنازع هؤلاء في المنتظر من آل النبي صلى الله عليه وآله بعد وفاة الحسن بن علي وافترقوا على 20 فرقة. They have disagreed about the identity of the awaited one from the Prophet's family following the death of Al-Hasan ibn Ali and have split into 20 sects. وقد ذكرنا حجاج كل طائفة منهم لما اشتبته لنفسها واختارته لمذهبها في كتابنا المترجم بسر الحياة وفي كتاب المقالات في أصول الديانات وما ذهبوا إليه من الغيبة وغير ذلك. We mentioned the arguments adduced by each sect and the views of each of them espoused in our two books, سر الحياة and مقالات في أصول الديانات, as well as their views on occultation and other matters. So when a famous historian like al-Mas'udi, who was very close to the time of Imam al-Askari alayhi salam, as he was born in the year 283 Hijri, which is only 23 years after Imam al-Askari alayhi salam. So he was born right in the middle of these sects, or shortly after that, because most of these sects could not pass the test of time and perished very quickly. So when such a historian bears witness that the Imamiyya, or the Twelvers who believed in the 12th Imam, he calls them the qat'iyya, i.e. those who stand firm, were the majority of the Shia. So when a scholar in this caliber says that, then what value an empty claim by some random guys over 1,000 years later really can have? This is in fact what both al-Nawbakhti and Sa'd ibn Abdullah also write, both of whom lived at the time of the emergence of these sects after Imam al-Askari alayhi salam. They both portray the Imamiyya as the unaltered original Shia doctrine, which was continuously following a straight path based on principles taught by the Messenger of Allah ﷺ and Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, and then after them from one Imam to the next Imam until the 12th Imam. And both of these scholars claim that this doctrine forms the consensus of the Shia Imamiyya, and it has always been like this. It should be mentioned that both of these books of these two scholars about Shia sects, i.e. the book of Firaq al-Shia by al-Nawbakhti and the book al-𝗙-𝗙𝗦𝗙𝗪 by al-Ash'ari, are very similar in content, which indicates that one of them has copied and revised the work of his peer. There is difference of opinion though about which one is the original book and which one is the revised version. Anyways, let's read the biography of both of these Twelver scholars. Shaykh al-Najashi says in his book Al-Fihrist, page 63, in the biography of Al-Nawbakhti, الحسن بن موسى أبو محمد النوبختي شيخنا المتكلم المبرث على نظرائه في زمانه قبل 300 وبعدها. He is Al-Hasan ibn Musa Abu Muhammad al-Nawbakhti, our theologian Shaykh, outstanding among his peers of his time before the year 300 and after that. And then he says, له على الأعوائل كتب كثيرة منها. He has written a number of books about previous generations, and then he lists these books until he mentions his books about Shia sects. وله كتاب فرق الشيعة. And he has a book about the Shia sects. وكتاب الرد على فرق الشيعة ما خلا الإمامية. And he also has a book of refutation of Shia sects except for Imamiyya. So al-Nawbakhti's biography indicates that he had at least two books written about Shia sects. One which still exists called Firaq al-Shia, i.e. Shia sects, and another one called Kitab al-Rad ala Firaq al-Shia ma khala al-Imamiyya, i.e. the book of refutation of Shia sects except for Imamiyya. So he, as a Twelver Imami Shia scholar, refutes those other Shia sects. Even in his other book that we have today, we can see a glimpse of his refutations of the other sects which emerged after Imam al-Askari alayhi salam. By the way, this also refutes the claims of some stupid people who say that al-Nawbakhti has denied the existence of a son for Imam al-Askari alayhi salam, which is one of the dumbest claims anyone could make, because first of all, al-Nawbakhti himself is known as a Twelver scholar. So how can he deny a son for Imam al-Askari alayhi salam, the 12th Imam? Secondly, as a Twelver Shia scholar, he even has written a book to refute the other Shia sects, as we just presented. On top of that, we can read the opinion of al-Nawbakhti himself, where he mentions the Twelver Imamiyya beliefs and his assertion about the correctness of this path, which we will present in this video. The same applies to Sa'd ibn Abdullah al-Ash'ari also. Shaykh al-Najashi says in his book Al-Fihrist, page 174-175, سعد بن عبد الله بن أبي خلف الأشعري القمي أبو القاسم شيخ هذه الطائفة وفقيهها ووجهها. سعد بن عبد الله بن أبي خلف الأشعري القمي أبو القاسم, he was Shaykh of this creed and its jurisprudence and their faith. And then he says, كان سمع من حديث العامة شيئا كثيرا وسافر في طلب الحديث. He had heard narrations from the Amma a lot, and he used to travel to collect narrations. And then he says, وصنف سعد كتبا كثيرة, and Sa'd has written many books. And then he mentions his books, among them كتاب الضياء في الرد على المحمدية والجعفرية, كتاب فرق الشيعة, the book of al-Dhiya in refutation to al-Muhammadiyya and al-Ja'fariyya, the book فرق الشيعة, Shia sects, which has been printed by the name al-Maqalat wal-Firaq. And at the end he states that توفي سعد رحمه الله سنة 300 وقيل سنة 99 و200. Sa'd, may Allah be pleased with him, passed away in the year 301 Hijri, and it is also said in the year 299 Hijri. So as we see in Sa'd ibn Abdullah's biography, he also has written books to refute some sects which emerged after Imam al-Askari alayhi salam. Another top Shia scholar who confirms what we just said, that the Imamiyya were the majority after Imam al-Askari alayhi salam, is none other than Shaykh al-Mufid. Shaykh al-Mufid summarizes what al-Nawbakhti has written about these sects. Shaykh al-Mufid says, as quoted by his student Sharif al-Murtada in his book Al-Fusul al-Mukhtara, page 318 to 321, قال الشيخ أيده الله: ولما توفي أبو محمد الحسن بن علي بن محمد عليهما السلام افترق أصحابه بعده على ما أكاه أبو محمد الحسن بن موسى النوبختي رضي الله عنه 14 فرقة. The Shaykh, i.e. Shaykh al-Mufid, may Allah support him, said, when Abu Muhammad al-Hasan ibn Ali ibn Muhammad alayhi salam passed away, his companions split into what Abu Muhammad al-Hasan ibn Musa al-Nawbakhti, may Allah be pleased with him, has listed as 14 sects. فقال الجمهور منهم بإمامة ابنه القائم المنتظر عليه السلام، وأثبتوا ولادته وصححوا النص عليه، وقالوا هو سمي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله ومهدي الأنام. The majority of them have affirmed the imamate of his son, the awaited Mahdi alayhi salam, and confirmed his birth and the nas regarding him. They have said that he is namesake of the Messenger of Allah and the Mahdi of mankind. واعتقدوا أن له غيبتين إحداهما أطول من الأخرى والأولى منهما هي القصرى وله فيها الأبواب والصفراء. And they believed he has two periods of occultation, one longer than the other, the first of which is the shorter one, during which he has representatives and envoys. ورووا عن جماعة من شيوخهم وثقاتهم أن أبا محمد الحسن بن علي عليه السلام أظهره لهم وأراهم شخصه. They have narrated from a group of their scholars and trustworthy individuals that Abu Muhammad al-Hasan ibn Ali alayhi salam revealed him and showed them his person. واختلفوا في سنه عند وفاة أبيه، فقال كثير منهم كان سنه إذ ذاك 5 سنين لأن أباه توفي سنة 60 و200 وكان مولد القائم عليه السلام سنة 55 و200. They only disagreed about his age at the time of his father's death. Many of them said that he was 5 years old, because his father died in the year 260 Hijri and the Mahdi alayhi salam was born in the year 255 Hijri. وقال بعضهم بل كان مولده سنة 52 و200 وكان سنه عند وفاة أبيه 8 سنين. Some of them have said that he was born in the year 252 Hijri, making him 8 years old at the time of his father's death. وقالوا إن أباه لم يمت حتى أكمل الله عقله وعلمه الحكمة وفصل الخطاب وأبانه من سائر الخلق بهذه الصفة إذ كان خاتم الحجج ووسيء الأوسياء وقائم الزمان. And they have also stated that his father did not die until Allah perfected his intellect and taught him wisdom and eloquence, distinguishing him from all other creations in this manner, as he was the seal of the divine proofs and the vicegerent of the vicegerents and the Imam of the time. واحتجوا في جواز ذلك بالدليل العقلي من حيث ارتفعت إهالته ودخل تحت القدرة. They have argued for the possibility of this based on rational evidence, as its impossibility was removed and it came under divine power. وبقوله تعالى في قصة عيسى عليه السلام ويكلم الناس في المهد وفي قصة يحيى عليه السلام وآتيناه الحكم صبيا. And they argue for its possibility by Allah saying in the story of Isa alayhi salam, where Allah said, and he will speak to the people in the cradle. And in the story of Yahya alayhi salam, where Allah said, and we gave him wisdom while still a boy. وقالوا إن صاحب الأمر عليه السلام حي لم يمت ولا يموت ولو بقي 1000 عام حتى يملأ الأرض قسطا وعدلا كما ملئت ظلما وجورا. They have asserted that the master of the affair alayhi salam is alive and has not died, nor will he die even if he remains for 1,000 years, until he fills the earth with justice and equity, as it has been filled with oppression and tyranny. وأنه يكون عند ظهوره شابا قويا في صورة ابن 30 سنة. They believe that when he appears, he will be a strong young man, appearing as a man of 30-something years old. وأثبتوا ذلك في معجزاته وجعلوه من جملة دلائله وآياته عليه السلام. And they have confirmed this among his miracles and included it among his signs and proofs عليه السلام. And then Shaykh al-Mufid gives a summary of the beliefs of the other sects according to al-Nawbakhti's account, and at the end he says قال الشيخ أيده الله وليس من هؤلاء الفرق التي ذكرناها فرقة موجودة في زماننا هذا وهو سنة 73 و300 إلا الإمامية ال12 القائلة بإمامة ابن الحسن. The Shaykh, i.e. Shaykh al-Mufid, may Allah support him, said, "Among these sects that we mentioned, there is no sect existing in our time, which is the year 373 Hijri, except for the Twelver Shia, who affirm the Imamate of the son of al-Hasan alayhi salam, المسمى باسم رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله القاطعة على حياته وبقائه إلى وقت قيامه بالسيف حسب ما شرحناه فيما تقدم عنهم." He is the namesake of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They assert about his life and existence until the time of his rising with the sword, as we have described previously about them. وهم أكثر فرق الشيعة عددا وعلما ومتكلمين ونزارا وصالحين وعبادا ومتفقهة وأصحاب الحديث وأدباء وشعراء. And they are the largest sect of the Shia in terms of numbers, scholars, theologians, thinkers, righteous individuals, worshippers, jurists, hadith scholars, literati, and poets. وهم وجه الإمامية ورؤساء جماعتهم المعتمد عليهم في الديانة. And they are the core Imamiyya and are the leaders of their community, and they are relied upon in the matters of religion. ومن سواهم منقرضون لا يعلم أحد من جملة ال14 فرقة التي قدمناها ذكرها ظاهرا بمقالة ولا موجودا على هذا الوصف من ديانته. As for the others, they are extinct, and no one from the 14 groups we previously mentioned is known to exist in this description of their creed. وإنما الحاصل منهم حكاية عمن سلف وأراجيف بوجود قوم منهم لا تثبت. What remains from them is merely a recounting from those who have passed away, and the rumors about the existence of some among them is not proven. So as we see, Shaykh al-Mufid's account of al-Nawbakhti's list of sects after Imam al-Askari alayhi salam is clear that the Twelver Imamiyya formed the majority of the Shia after Imam al-Askari alayhi salam. And at the end of listing those 14 sects that al-Nawbakhti has mentioned, Shaykh al-Mufid gives a statement about his time as well, stating that at the time of his statement, which was the year 373 Hijri, all of these 14 sects were gone, except for Twelver Imamiyya. One, that those other sects were insignificant in number, otherwise they would not cease to live on in some shape or form, and they would not have perished so quickly. Two, that their beliefs did not have strong foundations, therefore once they were challenged by evidence, their followers abandoned those sects quickly and the sects perished. In fact, we can see this in the example of one of the most stubborn sects among them, which were the sects following Ja'far ibn Ali as the Imam. Someone who is known as Ja'far al-Kazab, i.e. Ja'far the liar. He was a brother of Imam al-Askari alayhi salam. He passed away 11 years after Imam al-Askari alayhi salam in the year 271 Hijri. And there were at least 4 sects which believed in his imamah. One sect believed his brother Imam al-Askari alayhi salam designated him as the next Imam. Another sect believed his father Imam al-Hadi alayhi salam had designated him as the next Imam, and they claimed that Imam al-Askari alayhi salam was a false Imam. Another one, which had a really mumbo-jumbo belief, were those who believed Muhammad, son of Imam al-Hadi alayhi salam, who died during the lifetime of his father, was the real Imam. And he passed the imamah through a minor slave of his by the name of Nafis to his brother Ja'far ibn Ali. Another sect believed that since Imam al-Askari alayhi salam died without a son, then his brother Ja'far is the next Imam. So these were the main Ja'fariyya sects. Shaykh al-Mufid says about this Ja'far in his book Al-Fusul al-Ashra fi al-Ghayba, page 65, وبعد فإن الشيعة وغيرهم ممن عني بأخبار الناس والجواد من الآراء وأسبابها والأغراض كانت له فيها قد ذكروا أخبارا عن أحوال جعفر بن علي في حياة أخيه أبي محمد الحسن بن علي عليهما السلام. Afterward, the Shia and others who are concerned with the history of people and the emergence of doctrines and their origins and the motives behind them have mentioned reports about the status of Ja'far ibn Ali during the lifetime of his brother Al-Hasan ibn Ali عليه السلام وأسباب إنكاره خلفا له من بعده وجحد ولد كان له في حياته وحمل السلطان على ما صار به في مخلفي وشيعته, and the reasons for his denial of the successor after him and his rejection of a son that Imam al-Askari alayhi salam had during his lifetime, and that he motivated the authority to act against Imam's family and his Shia. لتصور الأمر في ذلك على حقيقته ولم يخفى على متأمل بحاله وعرفه على خطيئته. If I were to present it in its entirety, it would clarify the matter in its reality, and it would not be hidden from anyone who contemplates about his situation and recognizes his misdeed. لكنه يمنعني عن ذلك موانع ظاهرة. However, there are apparent obstacles that prevent me from doing so. أحدها كثرة من يعترف بالحق من ولد جعفر بن علي في وقتنا هذا. One of them is the multitude of those who acknowledge the truth from among the descendants of Ja'far ibn Ali in our time. ويظهر التدين بوجود ولد الحسن بن علي في حياته ومقامه بعد وفاته في الأمر مقامه. And they express their religious commitment to the existence of the son of Al-Hasan ibn Ali during his lifetime, and him taking the position of his father after him. ويكره إضافة خلافه لمعتقده فيه إلى جده. They dislike attributing the opposite of this belief of his to his grandfather. بل لا أعلم أحدا من ولد جعفر بن علي في وقتنا هذا يظهر خلاف الإمامية في وجود ابن الحسن عليهما السلام والتدين بحياته والانتظار لقيامه. Rather, I do not know of anyone from the descendants of Ja'far ibn Ali in our time who expresses a view contrary to the Imami belief regarding the existence of the son of Al-Hasan alayhi salam, and who maintains faith in his life and awaits his rising. This indicates that even the descendants of Ja'far, who was known as Ja'far al-Kazab, abandoned the belief in their father's imamah. And they even disliked that people attributed other than the belief of Twelvers for their father Ja'far too, which might indicate that they believed that their father repented before his death. And there are some reports also which may hint that Ja'far most probably repented before his death. So as we already said, the books that this Al-Islaah guy mentioned actually disproves his claims too. Because at least 5 sects that al-Nawbakhti and Sa'd ibn Abdullah al-Ash'ari have mentioned believed in a son for Imam al-Askari alayhi salam as the 12th Imam. They only differed on some details about him. They differed either about when was he born, or about his name, or whether they should make his name public or not. For example, the 6th sect, according to al-Nawbakhti, which is the 11th sect according to Sa'd ibn Abdullah al-Ash'ari, believed that Imam al-Askari alayhi salam had a son whose name was Muhammad. He was born years before Imam al-Askari alayhi salam's death, and Imam al-Askari alayhi salam had designated him and had proclaimed his imamah to his companions, and he used to hide him during his lifetime. And this sect believed that after Imam al-Askari alayhi salam, this son of his will have 2 occultations. If we look closely, we can see no difference between these beliefs and the Twelver or Imamiyya beliefs, and yet both of these scholars have mentioned it as a separate sect. The only difference that we can see between these 2 sects is the first one apparently used to announce the name of the son of Imam al-Askari alayhi salam, while the Imamiyya or Twelvers used to strongly prohibit to mention his name due to many narrations that have been narrated to not announce his name. Now let's read into what both al-Nawbakhti and Sa'd ibn Abdullah have to say when they mentioned the Imamiyya or the Twelver Shia creed. Shaykh Hassan ibn Musa al-Nawbakhti says in his book Firq al-Shia, page 148 to 151, الفرقة الثانية عشرة الإمامية الاثنا عشرية. وقالت الفرقة الثانية عشرة وهم الإمامية ليس القول كما قال هؤلاء كلهم، بل لله عز وجل في الأرض حجة من ولد الحسن بن علي وأمر الله بالغ. The 12th sect, and they are the Imamiyya, said that it is not as all these sects have said. Rather, Allah the Exalted has a divine proof on earth from the children of Al-Hasan ibn Ali alayhi salam, and Allah's order is final. وهو وصي لأبيه على المنهاج الأول والسنن الماضية, and he is the heir of his father according to the established path and past tradition. ولا تكون الإمامة في أخوين بعد الحسن والحسين عليهما السلام، ولا يجوز ذلك، ولا تكون إلا في غيبة الحسن بن علي إلى أن يقضي الخلق متصلا ذلك ما اتصلت أمور الله تعالى. For the Imamah cannot belong to 2 brothers after Al-Hasan and Al-Hussein alayhim salam, and it is not possible. It, i.e. the Imamah, will not be except in the absence of Al-Hasan ibn Ali until the end of humanity, and it will continue in this way as long as the religion exists. ولو كان في الأرض رجلان لكان أحدهما الحجة، ولو مات أحدهما لكان الآخر الحجة، ما دام أمر الله ونهيه قائمين في خلقه. If there remain 2 men on earth, one of them must be the Hujjah, i.e. the divine Imam. And should one of them die, then the Hujjah or the divine proof is the one remaining alive. ولا يجوز أن تكون الإمامة في عقب من لم تثبت له إمامة ولم تلزم الإبادة به حجة ممن مات في حياة أبيه ولا في ولده. Also, the imamah cannot belong to the progeny of a person who was not an undisputed imam and who died during his father's lifetime. And it does not bind people to accept the imamah of a person who dies during the lifetime of his father. Neither does the imamat of his children. ولو جاز ذلك لصح قول أصحاب إسماعيل بن جعفر ومذهبهم ولثبتت إمامة محمد بن جعفر وكان من قال بها محقا بعد مضي جعفر بن محمد. Otherwise, the claim of the followers of Ismail ibn Ja'far and their doctrine would be legitimate. And likewise, the imamah of Muhammad ibn Ja'far and whoever believed in it after the death of Ja'far ibn Muhammad alayhi salam would be on the right. وهذا الذي ذكرناه هو المعثور عن الصادقين الذي لا تدافع له بين هذه الإصابة ولا شك فيه لصحة مخرجه وقوة أسبابه وجودة أسناده. And this what we mentioned here, it is based on reports from the Sadiqeen, truthful ones, i.e. the Imams, about which there is no dispute among this creed, and there is no doubt about the authenticity of its source and the strength of its rational basis and the soundness of its chains. So al-Nawbakhti is arguing for the Twelver Creed, mentioning that the Twelver beliefs are based on established, authentic sources, not some made-up stuff. ولا يجوز أن تخلو الأرض من حجة ولو خلت ساعة لساخت الأرض ومن عليها. And it is not possible for the earth to be empty of a divine proof, and if it happens so, the earth will perish together with everyone living on it. ولا يجوز شيء من مقالات هذه الفرق كلها فنحن مستسلمون بالماضي وإمامته مقرون بوفاته معترفون بأن له خلفا قائما من صلبه وأن خلفه هو الإمام من بعده حتى يظهر ويعلن أمره كما ظهر وأعلن أمر من مضى قبله من آبائه. And all the claims of these sects are baseless, so we submit to the imamat of the deceased imam and we accept that he has passed away, we admit that he has a successor from his own progeny, and we admit that his successor is the imam after him until he appears and declares his imamat, the same way the imamat of his forefathers before him was declared and established. وَيَعْذَنَ اللَّهُ فِي ذَلِكَ إِذَا الْأَمْرُ لِلَّهِ يَفْعَلُ مَا يَشَاءُ وَيَعْمُرُ بِمَا يُرِيدُ مِنْ ظُهُورِهِ وَخِفَائِهِ. It is up to Allah to allow this to happen, for Allah is the final arbiter. He does what he wants and commands what he wills, be it his appearance or disappearance. كما قال أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام: اللهم إنك لا تخلي الأرض من حجة لك على خلقك ظاهرا معروفا أو خائفا مغمورا كي لا تبتل حجتك وبيناتك وبذلك أمرنا وبه جاءت الأخبار الصحيحة عن الأئمة الماضين. As the commander of the faithful said, O God, you will not deny the world an imam either recognizable or in the hiding, so that your proofs and arguments do not fade away. And that is how we were ordered to believe. And for this, authentic narrations have been reported from the previous imams. So al-Nawbakhti is arguing that al-Ghaiba is also based on authentic and established narrations among the Shia. لأنه ليس للعباد أن يبحثوا عن أمور الله ويقضوا بلا علم لهم ويطلبوا آثار ما سطر عنهم ولا يجوز ذكر اسمه ولا السؤال عن مكانه حتى يؤمر بذلك إذ هو عليه السلام مغمور خائف مستور بستر الله تعالى. For it is not up to the people to investigate Allah's affairs and judge without true knowledge or trace that which has been made hidden from them. Also, it is not permissible to mention his name or ask about his location until he is ordered to appear, because he alayhi salam is hiding, afraid, and has been veiled by Allah's veil. وليس علينا البحث عن أمره بل البحث عن ذلك وطلبه محرم لا يحل ولا يجوز لأن في إظهار ما ستر عنا وكشفه إباحة دمه ودمائنا وفي ستر ذلك والسكوت عنه حقنهما وصيانتهما. We must not investigate his affairs, rather looking to reveal it has been made forbidden and is not allowed, because revealing what has been veiled from us will lead to shedding his blood and ours, Unveiling it and silence about it saves and protects his life and ours. ولا يجوز لنا ولا لأحد من المؤمنين أن يختاروا إماما برعي واختيار، وإنما يقيمه الله لنا ويختاره ويظهره إذ شاء، لأنه أعلم بتدبيره في خلقه وأعرف بمصلحتهم، والإمام عليه السلام أعرف بنفسه وزمانه منا. And it is not permissible for anyone of the faithful to choose an imam according to their opinion or by election. Only Allah designates him, and He chooses him for us and makes him appear if He so wills, because He is more knowledgeable about what is better and more beneficial than His creatures are. And also the Imam knows himself and his times better than we do. وقد قال أبو عبد الله عليه السلام: وهو ظاهر الأمر معروف المكان لا ينكر نسبه ولا تخفى ولادته وذكره شائع مشهور في الخاص والعام. And indeed Abu Abdullah as-Sadiq alayhi salam was a known Imam, and his location was made public, and his lineage was visible, and his reputation was known by the inner and outer circles. He used to say: من سماني باسم فعليه لعنة الله، ولقد كان الرجل من شيعته يتلقاه فيحيد عنه، وروي عنه أن رجلا من شيعته لقيه في الطريق فحاد عنه وترك السلام عليه، فشكره على ذلك وحمده وقال له: لكن فلانا لقيني فسلم علي ما أحسن، وذمه على ذلك وأقدم عليه بالمكروه. He used to say: May Allah curse anyone who refers to me by name. That is why the men from his Shia would meet him without even greeting him. He used to thank him for that and told him: but so and so met me and greeted me. He was wrong in doing that, and he scolded him. وكذلك وردت الأخبار عن أبي إبراهيم موسى بن جعفر عليه السلام أنه قال في نفسه من منع تسميته مثل ذلك. Similar accounts were narrated about Abu Ibrahim Musa ibn Ja'far alayhi salam, who forbade naming him in the same way. وأبو الحسن عليه السلام يقول: لو علمت ما يريد القوم مني لأحلقت نفسي عندي بما لا يوثق ديني باللعب الحمام والديك وأشباه ذلك. Abu al-Hasan Ali ibn Musa al-Riza alayhi salam also said: had I known what they wanted from me, I would doom myself with breeding and fighting roosters and the like. فكيف يجوز في زماننا هذا مع شدة الطلب وجور السلطان وقلة رعايته لحقوق أمثالهم، مع ما لقي عليه السلام من صالح بن وصيف وحبسه وتسميته من لم يظهر خبره ولا اسمه وخفيت ولادته. How can this be permissible then in our time of government oppression and disregard for their status? For despite what Al-Hasan alayhi salam suffered at the hands of Salih ibn Wasif, he did not mention him or declare his name or his birth. وقد رويت أخبارا كثيرة أن القائمة تخفى على الناس ولادته ويخمل ذكره ولا يعرف إلا أنه لا يقوم حتى يظهر ويعرف أنه إمام ابن إمام ووسي ابن وسي يؤتم به قبل أن يقوم. Furthermore, many accounts were transmitted to us that Al-Mahdi's birth would not be common knowledge, and he would not be known. Nothing would be known about him except that he will not rise until he appears, and it will be known that he is an Imam and a son of an Imam, an heir and a son of an heir, Wasi, son of Wasi. He would be recognized as an Imam before he rises. ومع ذلك فإنه لا بد من أن يعلم أمره ثقاته وثقات أبيه وإن قلوا، ولا ينقطع من عقب الحسن بن علي عليه السلام ما اتصلت أمور الله عز وجل ولا ترجع إلى الإخوة ولا يجوز ذلك. Yet his trustworthy companions and the trustworthy companions of his father must know him, even though they might be small in number. The progeny of Al-Hasan cannot be extinct from the earth as long as the affairs of Allah the Exalted are on it. And the Imamate does not return to brothers, and it is not permissible. وأن الإشارة والوصية لا تصحان من الإمام ولا من غيره إلا بشهود أقل ذلك شاهدان فما فوقهما. And the hint and designation from an Imam cannot be established without witnesses, at least 2 or more. فهذا سبيل الإمامة والمنهاج الواضح الواجب الذي لم تزل الشيعة الإمامية الصحيحة التشيع عليه. This doctrine has been the path of establishing the Imamah and the clear path of obligation. It is the doctrine which the true Shia Imamiyya has not ceased to hold on to. So as we see, al-Nawbakhti extensively delivers striking proofs for the correctness of the Twelver Imamiyya creed, and at the end he clearly mentions that this doctrine has been the correct path of establishing the Imamate for the Imamiyya forever, i.e. from the time of the Messenger of Allah till Imam al-Askari alayhi salam passed away. Likewise, Sa'd ibn Abdullah al-Ash'ari in his book Al-Maqalat wal-Firaq, page 102 to 106, when he mentions the sects after the death of Imam al-Askari alayhi salam, he starts with Twelver Imamiyya and says, فَفِرْقَةٌ مِنْهَا وَهِيَ الْمَعْرُوفَ بِالْإِمَامِيَّةِ قالت لله في أرضه بعد مضيه الحسن بن علي عليه السلام حجة على عباده وخليفة في بلاده قائم بأمره من ولد الحسن بن علي بن محمد بن علي الرضا. One group among them, and it is known as the Imamiyya, they have said that Allah has a divine proof on his earth after the passing of Al-Hasan ibn Ali alayhi salam, and a divine proof for his servants and a Khalifa in his lands, one who is in charge of his affairs from the descendants of Al-Hasan ibn Ali ibn Muhammad ibn Ali al-Radha alayhim as-salam. أمرناه مبلغا عن آبائه مودعا عن أسلافه ما استودعوه من علوم الله وكتبه وأحكامه وفرائضه وسننه. We have accepted him as a leader, a messenger from his forefathers, entrusted by his predecessors with the knowledge of Allah, his books, his rulings, and his obligations and traditions. عالم بما يحتاج إليه الخلق من أمر دينهم ومصالح دنياهم خلفا لأبيه وبسيا له قائم بالأمر بعده. He is knowledgeable about what the creation needs regarding their religion and worldly affairs. He is a successor to his father and a testament for him, in charge of the affairs after him. هاد للأمة مهدي على المنهاج الأول والسنن الماضية من الأئمة الجارية في من مضى منهم القائمة في من بقي منهم إلى أن تقوم الساعة. A guide for the Ummah, rightly guided on the original path and the past traditions of the Imams who have passed, and in charge among those who remain of them until the day of judgment. ومن وتيرة الأعقاب ونظام الولادة ولا ينقل ولا يزول عن حالها ولا يكون الإمامة ولا يعود في الأخوين بعد الحسن والحسين ولا يجوز ذلك. From the lineage of successors and the order of birth, i.e. from father to son, and it will not change or depart from its state, nor will the imama be or return in two brothers after Al-Hasan and Al-Husayn alayhim as-salam, and this is not permissible. ولا يكون إلا في عقب الحسن بن علي بن محمد إلى فناء الخلق وانقطاع أمر الله ونهيه ورفعه التكليف عن عباده متصل ذلك مع اتصلت أمور الله. And it will not be except in the descendants of Al-Hasan ibn Ali ibn Muhammad until the end of creation and the cessation of Allah's command and prohibition and the lifting of duty from his servants, as long as matters of Allah continue. ولو كان في الأرض رجلان لكان أحدهما الحجة ولو مات أحدهما لكان الباقي منهما الحجة ما اتصل أمور الله ودام نهيه في عباده وما كان تكليفه قائما في خلقه. If on the earth there remain two men, one of them would be the hujjah or divine proof, and if one of them died, the one who remains is the divine proof, as long as Allah's command continues and his prohibitions continue among his servants, and as long as his obligation is established in his creation. ولا يجوز أن تكون الإمامة في عقب من يموت في حياة أبيه ولا في وصي له ومن أخ ولا غيره. It is not permissible for the imamate to be in the offspring of one who dies during his father's lifetime, nor in the successor of the deceased, be it his brother or anyone else. إذ لا تثبت للميت في حياة أبيه في نفسه إمامة وَلَمْ يَلْزِمْ الْإِبَادَ بِهِ حُجَّةً. If the imamate of the deceased was not established for himself during his father's lifetime, in such case it does not become a binding proof for the servants. وَلَوْ جَازَ ذَلِكَ لَصَحَّ مَذْهَبُ أصحاب إسماعيل بن جعفر بن محمد ولثبتت إمامة ابنه محمد بن إسماعيل بعد مضيه جعفر بن محمد. If that was permissible, the doctrine of the followers of Ismail ibn Ja'far ibn Muhammad would be valid, and the imamate of his son Muhammad ibn Ismail would be established after the passing of Ja'far ibn Muhammad. وكان من دان بها من المباركية والقرامة محقا لمصيبا في مذهبه. And those who believed in it of the Mubarakiyah and the Qaramita would be correct and justified in their doctrine. وذلك أن المعثور عن الأئمة الصادقين مما لا دفع بين هذه الإصابة من الشيعة الإمامية. This is because what has been transmitted from the truthful Imams is something that this creed of Imam Shia cannot deny. ولا شك فيه إنهم ولا ارتياب ولم يزل إجماعهم عليهم لصحة مخرج الأخبار المروية فيه وقوة أسبابها وجودة أسانيدها وثقة ناقليها. And there is no doubt about it among them, nor any suspicion. Their consensus on this matter has remained due to the validity of the sources of the narrated reports and the strength of their reasons and the quality of their chains of transmissions and the trustworthiness of their narrators. أن الإمامة لا تعود في أخوين إلى قيام الساعة بعد الحسن والحسين ولا يكون ذلك. That the Imamate does not return to the brothers until the day of judgment after al-Hasan and al-Husayn, and it is not permissible. ولا يجوز أن تخلو الأرض من حجة من عقب الإمام الماضي قبله ولو خلت ساعة لساخت الأرض ومن عليها. And it is not possible for the earth to be devoid of a divine proof from the descendants of the previous Imam. If it were to be empty for even an hour, the earth and all upon it would perish. فنحن متمسكون بإمامة الحسن بن علي مقرون بوفاته موقنون مؤمنون بأن له خلفا من صلبه متدينون بذلك. Thus, we hold firmly to the Imamate of Al-Hasan ibn Ali alayhi salam, admitting that he has passed away, believing with certainty that he has a successor from his lineage, and we are committed to this belief. وأنه الإمام من بعد أبيه الحسن بن علي وأنه في هذه الآلة مستتر خائف معمور بذلك. He is the Imam after his father Hasan ibn Ali alayhi salam, and in this state he is hidden, fearful and concealed, and he is commanded to do so. حتى يأذن الله عز وجل له فيظهر ويعلن أمره كظهور من مضى قبله من آبائه. Until Allah the Exalted permits him to appear and declare his matter like the appearance of those who preceded him from among his ancestors. إذا الأمر لله تبارك وتعالى يفعل ما يشاء ويأمر بما يريد من ظهور وخفاء ونطق وصمود. Indeed, Allah blessed and exalted does what He wills and commands what He desires regarding His appearance and concealment, or should he speak or remain silent. كما أمر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله في حال نبوته بترك إظهار أمره والسكوت والإخفاء من أعدائه والاستتار وترك إظهار النبوة التي هي أجل وأعظم وأشهر من الإمامة. Just as he commanded his messenger during his prophethood to refrain from declaring his matter, to be silent, and to conceal himself from his enemies, and to refrain from revealing prophethood, which is more exalted, greater, and more famous than the Imamate. فلم يزل كذلك سنين إلى أن أمره بإعلان ذلك وعند الوقت الذي قدره تبارك وتعالى فسدع بأمره وأظهر الدعوة لقومه. He remained so for many years until he was commanded to announce that at the time appointed by Allah, exalted, the sublime, and he proclaimed his command and revealed the invitation to his people. ثم بعد الإعلان بالرسالة وإقامة الدلائل المعجزة والبراهين الواضحة اللازمة بها الحجة. Then after the announcement of the message and the establishment of the miraculous signs and clear necessary proofs. بعد, and there is a blank here in the text, قريش وصاهر الخلق من عرب وعجم وما لقي من الشدة ولقي أصحابه من المؤمنين. And after, there is a blank in the text, Quraysh and all other Arabs and non-Arabs, and what he faced from hardship and what believers from among his companions encountered. أمرهم بالحجرة إلى الحبشة وأقم هو مع قومه حتى توفي أبو طالب عليه السلام. He commanded them to migrate to Abyssinia, and he stayed with his people until Abu Talib عليه السلام passed away. فخاف على نفسه وبقية أصحابه فأمره الله عند ذلك بالحجرة إلى المدينة. Then he feared for himself and the rest of his companions, so Allah commanded him at that time to migrate to Medina. وأمره بالاختفاء في الغارة والاستتار من العدو فاستتر أياما خائفا مطلوبا حتى أذن الله له وأمره بالخروج. And instructed him to hide in the cave and to conceal himself from the enemy. He remained hidden for days, fearful and sought after, until Allah permitted him and commanded him to emerge. وكيف بالغريب الوحيد الشريد التريد المتروب الموتور بأبيه وجده. So how can the same not apply to the lonely, wandering and pursued stranger sought after for his father and grandfather? هذا مع القول المشهور من أمير المؤمنين على المنبر أن الله لا يخلي الأرض من حجة له على خلقه ظاهرا معروفا أو خافيا مغمورا لكي لا يبطلوا حجته وبيناته. This is reconciled with the famous saying of the commander of the faithful on the pulpit, saying, Indeed, Allah does not leave the earth without a divine proof over His creation, whether manifest or hidden, so that His proofs and arguments do not fade away. وبذلك جاءت الأخبار الصحيحة المشهورة عن الأئمة. And for this, authentic and well-known narrations have been reported from the Imams. So Sa'd ibn Abdullah mentions the same thing, that the concept of ghaiba has been reported from the Imams through authentic chains and established proofs. وَلَيْسَ عَلَى الْعِبَادِ أَنْ يَبْحَثُوا عَنْ أُمُورِ اللَّهِ وَيَقِفُوا أَثَرِ مَا لَا عِلْمَ لَهُمْ بِهِ وَيُبْتِلُوا إظهاره فستر الله عليهم وغيبه عنهم. It is not upon the servants to seek out the secrets of Allah and to pursue what they have no knowledge of and to demand its revelation, for Allah has concealed it from them and has made it hidden from them. قال الله عز وجل لرسوله ولا تقف ما ليس لك به علم فليس يجوز لمؤمن ولا مؤمنة طلب ما ستره الله. Allah the Exalted said to his messenger, and do not pursue that of which you have no knowledge. Therefore, it is not permissible for a believing man or a believing woman to seek what Allah has concealed. ولا البحث عن اسمه وموضعه ولا السؤال عن أمره ومكانه حتى يؤمروا بذلك. Neither to inquire about his name and place, nor to ask about his matter and location until they are commanded to do so. إذ هو عليه السلام غائب خائف مغمور مستور بستر الله من متبع لأمره عز وجل ولأمر آبائه. For he عليه السلام is hidden, fearful, concealed, veiled by the veil of Allah the Exalted and the command of his forefathers. بل البحث عن أمره وطلب مكانه والسؤال عن حاله وأمره محرم. Rather, the search about his matter, the pursuit of his location, and the inquiry about his condition and affairs is forbidden. لا يحل ولا يسع لأن في طلب ذلك وإظهار ما ستره الله عنا وكشفه وإعلان أمره والتنبية باسمه معصية الله. It is not permissible nor is it within reason, because seeking that and revealing what Allah has concealed from us, exposing it, announcing his matter and mentioning his name is a disobedience to Allah. والعون على سفك دمه عليه السلام ودماء شيعته وانتهاك حرمته أعاذ الله من ذلك كل مؤمن ومؤمنة برحمته. And it is aiding in shedding his blood and the blood of his followers and violating his sanctity. May Allah protect every believing man and believing woman from that by his mercy. وفي ستر أمره والسكوت عن ذكره حقنها وصيانتها سلامة ديننا والانتباه إلى أمر الله وأمر أئمتنا وطاعتهم وفقنا الله وجميع المؤمنين لطاعته ومرضاته بمنه ورعفته. And concealing his matter and remaining silent about mentioning him and safeguarding and protecting his matter preserves our faith as it is adhering to the command of Allah and the command of our Imams and obeying them. May Allah grant us and all believers success in his obedience and pleasure by his grace and compassion. ولا يجوز لنا ولا لأحد من الخلق أن يختار إماما برأيه ومعقوله واستدلاله. It is not permissible for us or anyone among creation to choose an imam based on their opinion, reasoning, or by deduction. وكيف يجوز هذا وقد حذره الله جل وتعالى على رسله وأنبيائه وجميع خلقه فقال في كتابه إذ لم يجعل الاختيار إليهم في شيء من ذلك. How can this be permissible when Allah the Exalted has prohibited it for his messengers, prophets, and all his creation, as he said in his book, indicating that the choice was not left to them in any of that. وما كان لمؤمن ولا مؤمنة إذا قضى الله ورسوله أمرا أن يكون لهم الخيرة من أمرهم. It is not fitting for a believer, man or woman, when a matter has been decided by Allah and his messenger to have any choice about their matter. وقال وربك يخلق ما يشاء ويختار ما كان لهم الخيرة من أمرهم. And he said, and your Lord creates what he wills and chooses. It is not for them to choose. وإنما اختيار الحجج والأئمة إلى الله عز وجل وإقامتهم إليه. The choice of the divine proofs and imams belongs to Allah the Exalted, and their establishment is up to him. فهو يقيمهم ويختارهم ويخفيهم وإذا شاء أقمتهم فيظهرهم ويعلن أمرهم إذا أراد ويستره إذا شاء فلا يبديه. He establishes them, chooses them, and conceals them, and if he wills, he raises them up and makes them manifest, announcing their matter when he desires, and conceals it if he desires. لأنه تبارك وتعالى أعلم بتدبيره في خلقه وأعرف بمصلحتهم والإمام أعلم بأمور نفسه وزمانه وحوادث أمور الله منا. For he, the sublimed and exalted, knows best how to manage his creation and is more aware of their interests, and the Imam is more knowledgeable about his own affairs and his time and the events of Allah's matters than we are. وقد قال أبو عبد الله جعفر بن محمد وهو ظاهر الأمر معروف المكان مشهور الولادة والذكر لا ينكر نسبه شائع اسمه وذكره وأمره في الخاص والعام. And Abu Abdullah Ja'far ibn Muhammad alayhi salam indeed said, and his matter was manifest, his location was known, and his birth was well known, and he himself was famous. His lineage is not denied, and his name and mention and matter was widespread among the specific and the general masses. Despite that, he used to say, "Man sammani bi ismi fa'alayhi la'anatullah." Whoever names me by my name, upon him be the curse of Allah. وَقَدْ كَانَ الرَّجُلُ مِنْ أَوْلِيَائِهِ وَشِيعَتِهِ يَلْقَاهُ فِي الطَّرِيقِ فَيُحِيدُ عَنْهُ وَلَا يُسَلِّمْ عَلَيْهِ تَقِيَةً فإذا لقيه أبو عبد الله عليه السلام شكره على فعله له ما كان منه وحمده عليه. And at times there was a man from his friends and followers who would encounter him on the road and would avoid him and not greet him due to taqiyya. But when he met Abu Abdullah alayhi salam, he thanked him for his actions towards him, praised him for it. وَذَمَّ مَنْ تَعَرَّفَ إِلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ عَلَيْهِ وَأَقْدَمَ عَلَيْهِ بِالْمَكْرُومِ مِنَ الْكَلَامِ. And he condemned those who made him to be recognized and greeted him in public. He alayhi salam faced him with harsh words. وَكَذَلِكَ حُكِيَ عَنْ أَبِي إبراهيم مِنْ مَنْعِ تسميته مثل ما حكي عن أبيه كل ذلك تقية وتخوفا من العدو. Likewise, it has been narrated from Abu Ibrahim that he forbade naming him, just as it has been narrated from his father, all of this out of fear and caution from the enemy. وهذا أبو الحسن الرضا يقول ولو علمت ما يريد القوم مني لأهلكت نفسي عندهم بما لا يوثق ديني باللعب الحمام والديك وأشباه ذلك. This is Abu al-Hasan al-Riza alayhi salam, who used to say, had I known that what they wanted from me, I would do my image among them by playing with pigeons and roosters and such things. هذا كله لشدة التستر من الأعداء ولوجوب فرض استعمال التقية. This is all due to the extreme caution from enemies and the obligation to practice concealment. فكيف يجوز في زماننا هذا ترك استعمال ذلك مع شدة الطلب وضيق الأمر وجور السلطان عليهم? How can it be permissible in our time to abandon this practice with the intense pursuit, the tight circumstances, and the tyranny of the authority over them, وقلة رعايته لحقوق أمثالهم ومع ما لقي في الماضي أبو الحسن من المتوكل وشدته عليه, and the little regard for the rights of their like, along with what Abu al-Hasan faced from al-Mutawakkil previously and the severity he faced from him. وما حل بأبي محمد هذه الإصابة من صالح بن وصيف لعنه الله بحبسه إياه وأمره بقتله وحبسه له ولأهل بيته. And what happened to this blessed group through Salih ibn Wasif? May Allah curse him by locking up Abu Muhammad alayhi salam and his command to kill him, imprisoning him and his family. وطلب الشيعة وما نالهم منه من الأذى وتعنت تسمية من لم يظهر له خبر ولم يعرف له اسم مشهور وخفيت ولادته. And the persecution of the Shia and what they suffered from him in harm, and the obstinacy in naming someone whose news was not revealed and whose name was not known and whose birth was concealed. وقد رويت الأخبار الكثيرة الصحيحة أن القائمة تخفى على الناس ولادته ويخمل ذكره ولا يعرف اسمه ولا يعلم مكانه حتى يظهر ويعتم به قبل قيامه. And it has been indeed narrated many authentic reports that the Qa'im's birth is concealed from the people, and his mention is weakened, and his name is not known, nor his place, until he appears, and he is followed as an imam before his rising. ولا بد مع هذا الذي ذكرناه ووصفنا استتاره وخفاءه من أن يعلم أمره ثقته وثقات أبيه وإن قلوا. And it is necessary, along with what we have mentioned and described regarding his concealment and secrecy, that his matter is known to his trustworthy companions and the companions of his father, even if they are just a few. لأن الإشارة بالوصية من إمام إلى إمام بعده ولا تصح ولا تثبت إلا بشهود عدول من خاصة الأولياء أقل ذلك شاهدان فما فوقهما. Because the indication of the will from one imam to the next is not valid and cannot be established except with witnesses from the trustworthy among the special friends of the imams, at least 2 witnesses or more. إلا أن لا يكون للإمام الماضي إلا ولد واحد فيستغنى بذلك عن الإشارة إليه, unless the previous imam has only one son, in which case the designation and indication towards him is not necessary. على ما روي عن أبي جعفر محمد بن الرضا أنه قال لموسى بن عيسى بن عبد الله العشقري وهو يناظره في شيء من هذا النحو: يا أبا علي ارتفع الشك والشبهة ما لأبي غيري. As it has been narrated about Abu Ja'far Muhammad ibn Raza, who said to Muhammad ibn Isa ibn Abdullah al-Ashqari while debating him on something of this nature: O Abu Ali, the doubt and suspicion have been lifted. There is no other son for my father but me. ومع هذا فإن رضا لم يدع الإشارة إليه والوصية والإشهاد على ذلك. And despite that, Al-Riza alayhi salam did not abandon the designation and the will and taking people as witnesses for doing so. لأنه لا بد منه إذ السنة الجارية من رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله بذلك ومن الأئمة من بعده, because it is necessary since the sunnah has been established by the messenger of Allah in this matter and also by the imams after him. وإذ قد فعله أمير المؤمنين والحسن وفعله الحسن بالحسين مع وصية رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وإشارته إليهم, and since it was practiced by Amir al-Mu'minin and Al-Hasan, and Al-Hasan did it with Al-Hussein despite the existence of the will and indication of the Messenger of Allah towards them. وهي أن الإمامة في عقب الحسن بن محمد ما اتصلت أمور الله ولا ترجع إلى أخ ولا عم ولا ابن أم ولا ولد ولد ومات أبوه في حياة جده. And it is that the Imamate is in the descendants of Al-Hasan ibn Muhammad as long as the affairs of Allah continue, and it does not return to a brother, uncle, cousin or grandchild whose father died during the lifetime of his grandfather. ولا يزول عن ولد الصلب ولا يكون أن يموت إمام إلا ولد له لصلبه وله ولد وولد. And it will not cease to be from the descendants of the lineage, nor does an imam die while he has no son, and he again will have son and son. فهذه سبيل الإمامة وهذا المنهاج الواضح والغرض الواجب اللازم الذي لم يزل عليه الإجماع من الشيعة الإمامية ال-Muhtadiya rahmatullahi alayha. This is the path of Imamate, and this is the clear methodology and the necessary goal that has always been agreed upon by the guided Imamiyya Shia. May Allah have mercy upon them. وعلى ذلك كان إجماعنا إلى يوم مضي al-Hasan ibn Ali radhiyallahu alayhi. And upon that has been our consensus until the day that Al-Hasan ibn Ali alayhi salam passed away. So we see that Sa'd ibn Abdullah similarly says in defense of the Imamiyya that this path has always been the doctrine upon which there has been consensus among Imami Shias during the lifetime of the Imams until Imam al-Askari alayhi salam's death. So those who deviated from it are rather the Fringe groups and sects, and that is why they all perished very quickly, as Shaykh al-Mufid has testified. We can conclude that by all measures the Imamiyya or Twelvers were the majority of the Shia after Imam al-Askari alayhi salam, and all other sects were insignificant both in number as well as lack of having strong arguments for their creed, which made them to not be able to stand the test of time, and they all perished very quickly. So much so that in a time span of about 100 years, all that remained of them was just a brief mention of them in some books listing them among the Shia sects. It is also interesting that for most of them there hasn't been mentioned even a name by which they could be distinguished, which also clearly proves that they were insignificant and perished very quickly. Another important evidence is that you don't see any names of the close companions of Imam al-Askari alayhi salam and of any top-notch Shia scholars of his time among the proponents of these Fringe sects. So the French group Al-Islaah is exposed once again for their false claims about the Imamah of the 12 Imams that the Shia Twelvers believe in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.